Hello, everyone. I'm Jon Evans, and welcome to another episode of One-on-One. Harry Wayne Casey was in his early 20s when he founded his band. You may know him by a little different name, KC, as in KC and the Sunshine Band. They had a huge run back in the 1970s with 5 number-one hit singles. That's the Way I Like It, Shake Your Booty, Get Down Tonight. Those were just a couple of them. His songs still get covered today, more than 50 years later, in TV shows and in movies. Well, KC just turned 75, and he shows no signs of slowing down either. He's taking the band on tour again in 2026, and they have a stop right here in Wilmington. And Harry Casey joins us from his home in Florida. Harry, welcome to the One-on-One with Jon Evans podcast.
Thank you. How's everything going?
We are doing fine. Things are warming up. And full transparency here, my wife and I already have tickets for the show up front, and we're excited. But what can we and a couple thousand of our friends expect when the Sunshine Band rolls into Wilmington?
Well, I mean, there's 15 of us on stage. It's definitely a production show. We're coming there to have a lot of fun. As I say, do a little dance, make a little love, and get down tonight. It's an evening of music. I mean, it's Casey and the Sunshine Band. There's a lot of talent on that stage, and I like to share all of that with the audience, whether it's the drummers, the guitar players, the bass players, the singers, the dancers. So there's moments when I do exit the stage for a little bit, and I used to tell me I'm not gone longer than 45 minutes. It's just an evening of music. It's all the hits, and if you're a true fan, there's bits and pieces of other stuff that are intertwined throughout the show and stuff. It's just a show to come and have a good time with and relive some old memories and create some new ones.
What keeps you going now and still doing this in your mid-70s?
I know. I love what I just turned 75, so I mean, I love what I'm doing. So I think when you love what you're doing, how can you not enjoy life or enjoy it?
Do you still get the same feeling now playing those songs as you did maybe when they first came out, or when you were still trying to make a name for yourself back in the 70s, 74, 75, 76?
I would say so. I mean, I enjoy each and every one of them, each and every night. I never really get bored with them or like, oh, why am I doing this one again? I never feel like that at all. I'm just, I'm excited to be there and hopefully remember the words.
Being an old radio guy, I've always felt that music has the power to take people back to specific, not places, but scenes in their life. I can remember whether it was an old Journey record or an old Chicago record or a Casey and the Sunshine Band record, where I was growing up. How about you? When you sing Shake, Shake, Shake or Get Down Tonight, does it take you back to a specific time, maybe when you were writing them or when you first came up with the concept?
I don't know if it does that for me as much. As I listen to other songs that have come out during my lifetime that have meaning to me, like you said, I can place. I mean, if I go back and think about it, I can think about where I was when I first did Shake Your Booty and stuff like that or whatever. But it's not something I really think about.
One thing I respect more now than I did back then about your music, and even like Chicago, is the musicianship of the people in your bands. Like when I interviewed Lee Loughnane of Chicago when they came through town, I told him to get the horn sound back then, you had to play a horn. You couldn't manufacture it through a machine. And I think that's what really, really stands out to me about your records and the Chicago records, was just how good the musicianship was to the people in your band.
Right, and we do everything on stage is live. There's no digital, anything computerized or anything running during our show, other than a click track, which is like to keep the timing of the show. I don't hear that, the drummer does. But yeah, I mean, whereas I know a lot of other groups have added, they've got their whole show on digital and they add horns or background parts and stuff like that. But everything you hear on our show is totally live. There's nothing pre-recorded at all.
You grew up in Florida. When did you start playing music? How did you develop the love for it?
I grew up in a musical family for one, but I've been playing music since I was 5, 6. I mean, I've been playing it my whole life. I don't think I've never not played music.
Was there a performer that you saw early on in your career that made you say, I want to do that for a living? That's what I want to do.
Well, I had cousins and stuff that were putting out records and things, whether some of them were doing gospel records and stuff, though. But I'm sure I was affected by, we all have people that whether it's sports figures or musicians or whatever, that we gravitate towards and have a special meaning or influence us somewhat in what our careers are going to be, and whether, like you, for broadcasting, I might have been someone on the news or whatever, or some broadcaster. You and I grew up in a different time. I mean, now it's every, there's all sorts of opportunities to do things, where ours was a little bit more narrow, like, of what we could do and how we could get there.
Sure.
But yeah, I know growing up, I was just infatuated with the whole Motown sound. I was just anything, when you would watch, because I grew up with American Bandstand and stuff, and Dick Clark always had artists on there, or the Ed Sullivan Show always had artists. So I definitely always wanted to watch those shows to see the artists performing, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I got into radio back in 1978. My broadcasting career is almost 50 years. And
Right.
I tell people, I'm honest about it. I got into radio because I wasn't the popular kid in high school. I wasn't popular. I was kind of a nerd, a geek a little bit. And when I
Right.
got on the radio, all of a sudden I was popular. All of a sudden I was playing request lines and everything else like that. So I
Right.
know why I got into this. I don't
God.
make any bones about it.
Right. I mean, that was not anywhere on my radar. I just loved what I was, I growing up, I was, back then you didn't talk to your parents too much about anything. So I wrote all of my thoughts down on paper. They always kind of came out like in a song. However I was feeling about the world or something around me or something I was going through personally, always just came out as some kind of a lyric. Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Hialeah, and in Miami, which I had no idea. Like, I had this dream how I was going to make it all happen, because most things happened in New York or Memphis or Detroit or L.A. and Nashville or something like that, and I just had no idea how I was going to get there, but somehow I knew I would get there.
Did it ever bother you that your music, some people considered it disco? Because you were really, I've heard you in interviews and I've written a lot of the stuff that you've written, that you were really influenced by Motown. You were more of an R&B guy and were out with even your first record long before the quote unquote disco time came in this country.
Yeah, I wasn't sure why all of a sudden, it's really because of the Saturday Night Fever movie, I think, or the advent, discos or whatever you want to call them, venues have been around as long as I can remember. All they are is an extension of what American Bandstand was. Except, back then they just used to play records, in these clubs or whatever. Most clubs when I was growing up had live entertainment. Very few, were spinning records. So, yeah, I don't know if I was happy with that word or whatever, because I kind of felt like, the dance music that was happening was kind of it was really more R&B oriented and stuff. And I felt like it was R&B's time to shine. And I think, by renaming it disco kind of just squashed the idea that R&B had finally found its proper place in American music, beyond just R&B, beyond black radio. Although it had been being played on pop stations for centuries, I just felt like it had really found its place. And to me, it just seemed like they were not giving some credit due to where credit belonged.
The story goes that you got a job in a record store and really hung out at a record store and a record distributor to get your first opportunity. How did all that come about?
By accident. I mean, I got the job at the record store because I figured like I would be able to buy records wholesale. And then when I was working at the record store, I would see these records come in and they would have the local address. They were being made at this company that I used to go to pick up the records at. So I got tired of working at the record store. I quit. I went to the distributor where I saw that these records were being made. Asked Henry for a job there because I knew Henry because he would see me picking up records and I got to know him. He was the owner. And so he didn't have any job openings, so I got a job at his competitor. And then every day I would go hang out at TK at night or whatever after work and just started doing all kind of things there. Worked in the promotion department, marketing, sales. I worked in the warehouse. I did anything. You know, I managed the artists there. I just did a little bit of everything. And then at the same time was starting to play on records and, you know, co-write with some of the writers there and stuff until I wrote my own song. So it was a 5-year process, and, you know, it took about 5 years for me to get to my first #1 song.
What was the first song that you ever recorded? I know your first record was called Do It Good, and you had Blow the Whistle, I think was the name of the first one that charted,
I
correct?
wrote some songs for Clarence Reed and Betty Wright and Timmy Thomas and stuff. Timmy Thomas had a big hit called Why Can't We Live Together? So I co-wrote some stuff with him and Betty and Clarence. So, you know, before the Casey and the Sunshine Band stuff. And then I was writing some stuff for some of the local, the other artists that were there at the label that no one was paying attention to.
You had a big song, Rock Your Baby, for George McRae. You wrote that one in 74. So did they recognize your songwriting abilities before your performance abilities?
Writing is something I've been doing like since I was 12 years old or whatever. You know, like I was saying, like I wrote about things that I was feeling and that sort of thing. And then I just started writing with other writers there. I didn't know which way my career was going to go. I just knew that I loved music. I loved the whole idea of the entertainment industry, and somehow I was going to be involved in it. Where that was going to end up, I didn't know. That's why I was managing artists, booking artists. I was learning the warehouse. I was learning promotion, sales, you know, publicity, every part of it. Not knowing where I would end up, you know, I just and I enjoyed being a part of all of it. So I had my hands in a lot of different things. I did interviews like you're doing right now. You know, I remember interviewing Stevie Wonder and a few other major artists who came into town, and so yeah, I just knew I loved this industry, and I've always told people, like, if you love a certain industry, if you can't be the quarterback on the football team, there's so many other jobs that are out there that support, you know, the team, the game that day or whatever, wherever it is. If it's publicity, as long as it has to do with football and you love football, put yourself into that. You love broadcast journalism, whatever. So you got the radio stations, and you're doing this now and stuff because that's what you love doing. And you know, I think so many times people just don't do what they love to do in life, and you know, I think it's so important to just put yourself within that industry some way, somehow, and you'll be happy and you'll be content.
When you released your first record, Do It Good, and then you started putting together the second record, when you went to folks and were playing them some of the tracks for record #2, which I understand you recorded on like an 8-track recording studio, what was the feedback before Casey and the Sunshine Band record came out?
Well, there was never any feedback. I mean, the process that we did at TK or whatever was, if you made a record, they printed up like 100 of them. They would try to get, if the local R&B station would play it or whatever, then they would make sure that some of the stores had a couple of copies or whatever. And if there was a reaction, it would go to the next step. You know, no one ever said anything. If they liked the record enough to put it out, they would press up 100, 200 copies of whatever it is and make sure it was available and try to get it on the radio. If they got it on the radio in Miami, then it would go to the next radio station in another city and whatever. They had a whole, network of stuff or whatever, the way they did things.
Do you
And so
remember how
that's,
you found out that Get Down Tonight hit number one? Do you remember when you found out and where you were?
I was out of the country. I remember Get Down Tonight coming on the Billboard chart like at number 98, and then 2 weeks later falling off. And I went to Henry and said, Henry, this record's a hit record. What's wrong? He says, don't worry about it. So that was the end of that. And then I'm trying to think where I was when it went to number one, but I wasn't in the States. I might have been over in England. I don't remember. I just know I wasn't here
Right.
when it went to number one.
How big was the wave that then followed? I mean, you had, three
Well,
number
I
ones
mean,
in a year. It
was
had to be
huge.
just a huge wave.
I came from a record company that usually had a lot of one-hit wonders. So, here I wrote Rock Your Baby, and I've written Get Down Tonight, and then That's the Way I Like It, and Shake Your... So it was like, wow, this is pretty crazy. I mean, I don't even know if I expected that to happen, and they just kept coming and coming and coming. And so, I mean, it was, what a blessing that was, right?
Yeah. Was there a time that it ever really just got too big?
Yeah, like at about 10 years into it, I just wanted to have nothing to do with any of it anymore. And I left. I didn't want to be told what to do, when to smile, how to do it, and I just bowed out right after Give It Up was a hit. I was just done. I was
And
just fried.
did the success just make it tough to be Harry?
Of course it does. I mean, I know who I am, but it doesn't. It makes it tough, sometimes. Definitely in, people that want to be around you because they want to be around you because you're Harry or because you're KC.
Right.
You know.
I think as a fan, my wife and I will often watch a production to listen to or go to a show, and her tagline is, that's somebody I'd like to have a beer with. And is that the kind of person you wanted to be as an entertainer, the kind of guy that even off stage people would want to go have a beer with?
I mean, I just want to be me. I'm just me. You know what I mean? I don't think about like getting up on that stage and being someone that would, like you said, would want to go have a beer with or whatever. I mean, if it comes off in that way, that's great, because then I'm just being me, really. I try not to put too much attention onto those sort of things in my life. I mean, it took me 40 years to understand who I am, and what happened and all that stuff, to be comfortable enough with it, to finally, I think, accept it in my own head, what had happened and that sort of thing. Because I only know myself as me. I don't know myself as Casey, because they're one is one thing and one is the other,
Right.
in a lot of ways.
Was there a specific incident that made you walk away? I mean, you said you didn't want to be told what to do or where to go, but was there one thing that happened?
This industry, as every industry, is very political. And I was just done with the politics of it all, the political part of it all. I was just over it.
You talked, and you have talked about falling into bad times and falling into dark times. How dark
Right.
did those times get after you walked away?
I mean, they were pretty dark. I mean, I did a lot of drugs and stuff. Not to say I didn't enjoy it at the time or whatever. I just think I was searching for. I did things in my 30s, and my 10 years of my 30s. I think most people do in their teens, and I don't know if it's making up for what I thought was lost time, or just letting the floodgates open and just be some type of an individual, of a person who's not KC or whatever. I don't know. I really don't have a straight out answer for that.
Right.
I got involved in it. Luckily, I made it through some bad times or whatever, and fixed it and corrected it, in '95.
What brought you back?
I think Arsenio Hall's the idea that he wanted to see a reunion of the band on his TV show, and I went and did it, and I just realized that I had stopped doing something that I really loved. And, my father had always said, never give up. And even James Brown used to tell me, you never stop. And here I had stopped and all this sort of stuff. And so I started, I did that TV show, and then I started doing some shows just with me and the girls, just some clubs with backing tracks. And I just saw that, people loved the music. I mean, for an artist, we until we get out there and do a live show, we have no connection with the fans or the public.
Right.
And to really witness that after an extensive time of being away and seeing that you're still loved and still cared about and people still enjoy the vibe and the music, I realized that I had given up on something and probably let a lot of other people down by doing it. And so I just put on my boogie shoes and got back out there and started doing things. Sadly, I was still doing some drugs. So in '95, I checked into a rehab for 3 months, and here I am.
It's really a gift to give the gift of a smile to somebody, and your music has done that. I don't care if it's Shake 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 or Boogie, whatever one it was. To be able to give people a smile, I think, is one of the greatest gifts a human being can give, and you were given the gift to be able to give the gift.
Right. And I felt like I had let everyone down, so I picked up the pieces and put it back together.
I've heard stories of recording artists writing lyrics or ideas down on napkins and matchbooks. Do you have a story about writing something down in a strange place that later became a song?
I don't know. Like I have 100 ideas on my phone right now, and what's interesting is, although I have all these ideas on the phone, if I went into the studio today, I'd probably start with a fresh idea of something that's in my head right now instead of going back and looking into something that I have before. I definitely have written things down on matchbooks, whatever I could find to write something on, or have a little recorder with me or whatever. This is the best thing now, the notes in my phone, because I can just write things down in it, and I also record an idea. And I have on my, I just, in the last 12 years, I've recorded like 56 songs. And some of the songs I've done, and I've worked with this one person that I've worked with is in London, and I'll record the melody on my phone. I send him the melody, and he writes the song around them. He writes the music around the melody, and then I finish it. So it's a pretty interesting process.
I was going to say that's an interesting partnership. Of all the songs that you have written that you released on records, did any surprise you when they became a hit? Maybe you didn't think as much of it, but the fans loved it, and maybe one you thought was going to be great didn't do as well?
I know. I think "Shake Your Booty." I wasn't sure about "Shake Your Booty" because it was just so simple to do. I mean, the whole recording of the whole song was just so simple and so quick that I thought, I don't know about this one. So I was a little surprised with that one. I have a lot of songs that I have done that I thought should be hits that didn't quite make it, but you never know the answer to that, whether it wasn't heard enough or why.
Is there any stories of working with people in your career that just highlight the best of the music business? Of all the people you worked with, you just remember, George McRae or Dolly Parton or some of the other people that you worked with that you just remember that being one of the best times of your life?
I mean, all of them have been the best times of my life, whether it was Dolly, whether it was Donna Summer or Mac Davis, or I was kind of friends with Michael Jackson for a while there. I remember talking to Janet before, she even became Janet. I was around Cher a lot, Diana Ross. I mean, meeting Lucille Ball was probably one of the highlights of my career. Every opportunity to be around someone within my industry is just a blessing.
Do you encourage young singers and musicians to get into the business? It's a lot different now than it was when you were coming up.
Well, I mean, it's a tough business. I mean, it's not like most other. I mean, every business is probably difficult, but I think the entertainment business can be a little bit more because there's a lot of doors that get closed on you. But I don't know. I mean, I would encourage anyone to do whatever they're feeling in their heart to do. There's so many more easier outlets, for younger musical artists or whatever these days, even acting and stuff with TikTok and YouTube and all these things that they can. I mean, look at Justin Bieber came from just doing YouTube videos or whatever. Even Teddy Swims recently.
Yeah.
So there's such a huge opportunity out there for people now, whereas you don't have to depend on some A&R person at a record company telling you, no, you're not good enough. Because if you get enough followers and stuff, you're in like Flynn.
Yep.
I mean, now you go to a record label, they say, how many followers do you have?
Yeah, not how many sales you have, how many followers
Correct.
you have.
Yeah.
If somebody
how good is your music? How many followers do you have?
If somebody would have told you when you were working in that record store or when you were working in that record distribution place that you would be KC and have all the hit records and have all the success you've had, what would you have told them back then?
Probably would have said, I hope so. I mean, there were people around me that felt I was going to go. I mean, in high school, I was elected as the superlative as the most talented person to succeed, in that category in high school. I also went to school with Bucky Dent, who was, a Major League Baseball player.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I remember Bucky Dent.
Yeah, we were in the same classes together and stuff. And he was nominated as a superlative that year also. I would have to, my mother's the only one that ever said I should get a job and make something of myself.
Fans of KC and the Sunshine Band will get a chance to hear all the hit songs Sunday, March 15th when they roll into the Wilson Center in downtown Wilmington. Harry Wayne Casey, I've really enjoyed our conversation today. Like I said, Sheila and I have our tickets to the show when you come in on March the 15th. We appreciate you taking the time. Thank you for being on the One-on-One with Jon Evans podcast. Thank you.
I look forward to being. I'm sort of a North Carolinian. I have a home in Chapel Hill, so I know where Wilmington is.
A big thanks to Harry Casey, KC in the Sunshine Band, for taking time from his schedule for this week's podcast interview. You can get the latest news about him and the band by heading over to their website. It's Hey, Hey, KCSB.com. HeyKCSB.com. There are still tickets available for the band's show March 15th here in Wilmington. I'll put a link on how you can get tickets inside this story on our website and the WECT News app. Now, before we go, I'd like to ask you a favor. Please follow or subscribe to the One-on-One with Jon Evans podcast on whatever app you use to listen to your favorite shows. And if you'd like to see a video version of this podcast episode, just head on over to my YouTube channel. It's Jon Evans TV. I'm Jon Evans. Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of One-on-One.